Good morning. It was a long time doing that one, right? Good morning, everyone. I welcome you to the fifth meeting of the Pennsylvania Public Utility Commission for the year 2022. And I ask for another long time coming for everyone to please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. It is so great to see everyone's face today. As we start this public meeting, we just want to remind everyone that today's meeting is open to the public and the commission will act on various matters. But also as a reminder, there is no opportunity for the public to address the commission at this public meeting. The public meeting motions, statements, and video will be available on the commission's website later today. So our first matter on this morning's agenda is the approval of the February 24, 2022 minutes. And I turn to my Vice Chairman Colvin, as the editor.
Well, thank you, Chairman. I have reviewed the minutes of the February 24, 2022 public meeting, and I move that they be approved as submitted.
You have heard the motion to approve the minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Unora. Any further edits, or I'm assuming not. So without objection, if there's any, I'll take a roll call. How about that? All those in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes 3-0. And now, without further ado, we will call up the Commission's Secretary, Rosemary Chiavetta, who will lead us through this morning's agenda.
Good morning, Madam Chairman. Good morning, Commissioners. Live from Hearing Room 1, it's Thursday morning. Your various bureaus and offices have prepared the following agenda for your consideration. Therefore, let us begin on page 1 with the recommendation of Director Monahan and the Bureau of Audits that the Commission adopt the audit report for UGI Utilities Universal Service Program.
Is there a motion to adopt the staff recommendation?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Vice Chairman Coleman, second by Commissioner Unora. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes 3-0.
Turning to page 2, and matters presented by Director Bechtel and the Bureau of Consumer Services, it is recommended that the Commission adopt the proposed order in the joint petition filed by the First Energy Companies regarding their joint universal service and energy conservation plan.
Is there a motion to adopt the staff recommendation?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Vice Chairman Coleman, second by Commissioner Unora. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes 3-0.
Continuing on page 2, it is recommended that the Commission adopt the proposed order in the Universal Service and Energy Conservation Plan for the Duquesne Light Company.
Is there a motion to adopt the staff recommendation?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Vice Chairman Coleman, second by Commissioner Unora. Any discussion?
Chairman, I do have a motion on this matter.
Vice Chairman Coleman.
Thank you. I'd ask that my motion be entered into the record as though I read it in its entirety. On November 19, 2020, the Pennsylvania Public Utility Commission entered a tentative order withholding approval of the proposed 2020 to 2025 Universal Service and Energy Conservation Plan for the Duquesne Light Company until review of further requested supplemental information and stakeholder comments. On December 11, 2020, Duquesne filed the supplemental information, the Coalition of Affordable Utility Service and Energy Efficiency in Pennsylvania, the Office of Consumer Advocate, the Duquesne individually filed comments and/or reply comments. Duquesne, CAUSE, PA, and OCA also filed a joint petition for settlement on August 13, 2021. Duquesne and various stakeholders also reached a settlement affecting universal service matters in Duquesne's most recent base rate case. The rate case settlement was approved by the Commission by order entered December 16, 2021. The Commission has considered the supplemental information, comments, reply comments, and the joint petition for settlement filed by the parties. I am in agreement with most aspects of the proposed order and will be willing to move that it's adopted with one modification. The proposed order requires that Duquesne submit a revised 2020 USAP that will be subject to exceptions and reply exception period, and the revised USAP and any exceptions will be addressed at a future public meeting. This practice for the review and approval of the revised USAP has been in place at the Commission for about 5 years. Prior to this change, the Commission directed that a public utility service serve a revised USAP or compliance filing with the Bureau of Consumer Services for review. The Commission did not utilize an exception reply exception period, and there was no public meeting vote on the USAP compliance filing. If BCS identified an error in the compliance filing, a correction could be directed through the issuance of a secretarial letter. The Commission does from time to time adjust its procedures for the review and disposition of matters that comes before it. In the case of USAPs, the Commission's regulations and enabling legislation do not identify a specific process that must be utilized for the review and approval of these plans. While it is reasonable for the Commission to adopt and try this longer process, in my view, it has resulted in an expenditure of Commission and utility resources without a corresponding benefit to justify its continued use. I find that BCS is in the best position to determine whether the revised USAP is in compliance with the Commission order and that the parties to the proceeding are free to file a protest or a revised USAP if they deem it necessary. Therefore, I will move that the Commission return to its prior practice of directing the public utilities to serve revised USAPs adopted through the final order on BCS for compliance review. The Commission will cease to use of an exception and reply exception period for revised USAPs and will not require an additional public meeting vote on these compliance filings. Therefore, I move that the proposed order is adopted as modified by this motion and that the Law Bureau prepare an order consistent with this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chairman Coleman. You have heard the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Unora. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes 3-0. On the matter as amended, I don't believe there's any objection to taking the previous roll call. Seeing no objection, the matter as amended passes 3-0.
Turning to page 3. It is recommended that the Commission adopt the proposed order in the proposed Universal Service and Energy Conservation Plan for the National Fuel Gas Distribution Corporation.
Is there a motion to adopt the staff recommendation?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Vice Chairman Coleman, second by Commissioner Unora. Any discussion?
Chairman, I do have a motion on this matter as well.
Vice Chairman Coleman.
Thank you, and I will try to abbreviate. This is the same matter that we just addressed in my previous motion, so I will do my best to cut this down as much as I possibly can this morning. I would ask that the motion be entered in the record as though I read it in its entirety. On July 15, 2021, the Pennsylvania Public Utility Commission entered an order withholding approval of the proposed 2022-2026 Universal Service and Energy Conservation Plan for National Fuel Gas Distribution Company pending review of requested additional information and stakeholder comments. The July 2021 order indicated issues that required further attention on the record, directed National Fuel Gas to provide supplemental information, and set a timeline for stakeholder comments and reply comments. The Commission has considered the supplemental information, comments, and reply comments filed by the parties. The proposed order would direct National Fuel Gas to submit a revised 2022 USAP consistent with the order for the reasons described therein. I am in agreement with the most aspects of the proposed order with one modification, and that modification, as I've just described in my previous motion. That modification is to adjust the procedures for the review and disposition of this matter, and therefore I will move that the Commission return to its prior practice of directing the public utilities to serve revised USAPs adopted through the final order on BCS for compliance review. that the Commission will cease to use the exception reply exception period for revised USAPs and will not require an additional public meeting vote on these compliance filings. Therefore, I move that the proposed order is adopted as modified by this motion and that the Law Bureau prepare an order consistent with this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chairman Coleman. You have heard the motion of Vice Chairman Coleman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Unora. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes 3-0. On the matter as amended, is there any objection to taking the previous roll call? Seeing none, the matter as amended passes 3-0.
Turning to page 4, in matters presented by Director Sophie and the Office of Special Assistance, it is recommended that the Commission adopt the proposed opinion and order in the secretarial letter issued to the Borough of Pottstown.
Is there a motion to adopt the staff recommendation?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Vice Chairman Coleman, second by Commissioner Unora. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes 3-0.
Continuing on page 4, it is recommended that the Commission adopt the proposed opinion and order in the formal complaint of Cynthia Moscow versus Verizon Pennsylvania, LLC.
Is there a motion to adopt the staff recommendation?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Vice Chairman Coleman, second by Commissioner Unora. Any discussion?
Chairman, I must have a lot to say this morning. This is my third motion.
You're excited. We're all excited.
Thank you for recognizing me for the purpose of my motion. And I'd ask that the motion be entered in the record as though I read it in its entirety. Before the Commission for consideration and disposition are the exceptions of Verizon Pennsylvania on the initial decision issued in this matter. For the reasons set forth in my written motion, I propose to grant Verizon PA's exceptions in part and to modify the initial decision. The complaint alleges that Verizon PA refused to repair her copper lines and instead wanted to switch her telephone service to fiber. Following a hearing, an initial decision was issued sustaining the complaint and assessing a civil penalty of $25,900 on Verizon PA. The initial decision finds that Verizon PA failed to render adequate and reasonable telephone service to its complainant. According to Verizon PA, in exception number 1, the initial decision incorrectly finds that it failed to maintain its network. In its exception to number 2, Verizon PA accepts to the $25,900 civil penalty. Verizon PA argues that it took reasonable measures to maintain its network and provide continuous uninterrupted service. Verizon PA argues that it repeatedly attempted to move complainant service to an upgraded fiber facility, but she refused to grant access necessary to do so. Verizon PA continues that it should not be penalized because the customer refused to allow access to her home to upgrade the service with the best available facilities. Upon review, the record supports that complainant's telephone service was not reliable for a relevant time period. Nevertheless, as discussed in the more detail in my written motion, I do not believe that the record supports a $25,900 civil penalty. I believe the complainant's repeated refusal to migrate her telephone service from copper to fiber mitigates against such a large civil penalty. Rather, I propose a civil penalty of $2,000 for the reasons set forth in my written motion. Therefore, I move that the exceptions filed by Verizon Pennsylvania, LLC at the above captioned docket are granted in part consistent with this motion. The initial decision issued at the above captioned docket is modified consistent with this motion, and that the Office of Special Assistance prepare an opinion in order consistent with this motion. Thank you.
You have heard the motion of Vice Chairman Coleman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Unora. Discussion on the motion? I do have comments placed on the record, and I will read them in their entirety. While I support this motion to lower the total penalty imposed on Verizon, given the transition from a copper network to a fiber network at issue in this case, I would have preferred a higher civil penalty. The ALJ conducting the proceeding found the complainant to be credible. The motion is focused primarily on the complainant's opposition to Verizon replacing its copper network with a newer state-of-the-art fiber network. I agree that the transition from copper to fiber is not a matter within the Pennsylvania Public Utility Commission's purview. Also, fiber networks are critical to next-generation voice and broadband services. While the Commission cannot entertain complaints regarding the fiber transition, we can and should take seriously quality of service complaints that occurred prior to the fiber transition. In this case, facts show 39 instances of poor service quality that arose on the copper network in the 2016 through 2019 period, where Verizon made its April 2019 Verizon transition filing before Verizon made its April 2019 fiber transition filing with the Federal Communications Commission. The ALJ's recommendation focused on 11 events that arose primarily in 2018 and 2019 to support a penalty. For example, the complainant was unable to make calls during a medical emergency in 2016, and some restoration of service took up to 18 days. Access to 911 service is a critical component of reasonable telephone service, and this record demonstrates that reasonable telephone service was not provided to the complainant. For those reasons, I would have preferred, as I started out earlier, to impose a larger total civil penalty addressing these significant quality of service issues that occurred on the copper network before Verizon filed to replace the network with fiber. So with that, I will be voting to concur and result only on this motion. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And I will be concurring in result only. Any opposed? The motion passes 3-0, noting that I am concurring in result only. On the matter as amended, is there any objection to taking the previous roll call? Hearing none. Matter as amended passes 3-0, noting that I am concurring in result only.
Turning to page 5. It is recommended that the Commission adopt in an omnibus motion both items on page 5, beginning with the formal complaint filed by Interstate Gas Supply, doing business as IGS Energy et al. Versus the Metropolitan Edison Company et al., and continuing the omnibus to include both items on page 6, both items on page 7, both items on page 8, both items on page 9, and including and ending the omnibus on page 10 with the single item on page 10, the joint petitions of Verizon North LLC and Windstream Communications LLC.
Is there a motion to adopt the staff recommendations?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Vice Chairman Coleman, second by Commissioner Yunora. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes 3-0.
Turning to page 11, and matters presented by Director Diskin and the Bureau of Technical Utility Services. It is recommended that the Commission adopt in an omnibus motion both items on page 11, beginning with the application of GC Pivotal LLC, and continuing the omnibus to include both items on page 12, all 3 items on page 13, and all 3 items on page 14, ending the omnibus with the Price Stability Index Service Price Report of the Citizens Telephone Company of Kecksburg.
Is there a motion to adopt the staff recommendations?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Vice Chairman Coleman, second by Commissioner Yunora. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes 3-0.
Continuing on page 15, it is recommended that the Commission adopt in an omnibus motion the first 2 items on page 15 regarding the reports filed by Frontier Communications and Commonwealth Telephone Company and Frontier Communications of Breezewood LLC, Canton LLC, Lakewood LLC, Oswego River LLC, and Pennsylvania LLC.
Is there a motion to adopt the staff recommendations?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Vice Chairman Coleman, second by Commissioner Yunora. Any discussion? Under discussion, I will place my recusal statement on the record in its entirety. I will be recusing myself from voting on these two matters because my brother still works for Frontier Community. Still works for Frontier. He's older than me. I just want to let everyone know that. He's still working. So I had to say this since we're in public. But I will recusing myself from these two matters. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The matter passes 2-0, noting my recusal.
Continuing at the bottom of page 15, it is recommended that the commission adopt in an omnibus motion the remaining item on page 15, the application of Columbia Gas of Pennsylvania, Washington County, PA, and continuing the omnibus on page 16 to include both items on page 16 and ending the omnibus with the commission's selection of a third-party administrator for the Pennsylvania Universal Service Fund.
Is there a motion to adopt the staff recommendations?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Vice Chairman Coleman, second by Commissioner Unora. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes 3-0.
Turning to page 17, and matters presented by Chief Counsel Hicks and the Law Bureau, it is recommended that the commission adopt in an omnibus motion both items on page 17, beginning with the petition for reconsideration filed by Good Energy LP, and including and ending the omnibus at the top of page 18 with the joint petition of Air Voice Wireless LLC and VTEL Holdings LLC.
Is there a motion to adopt the staff recommendations?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Vice Chairman Coleman, second by Commissioner Unora. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes 3-0.
And finally, on page 18, it is recommended that the commission adopt the final order for the notice of proposed rulemaking for diversity reporting of major jurisdictional utilities.
Is there a motion to adopt the staff recommendation?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Vice Chairman Coleman, second by Commissioner Unora. Any discussion? I will place comments on the record in their entirety. I think that this rulemaking is so important that I will read the entire set of comments. At the February 6, 2020 public meeting, I issued a motion directing an update of our diversity reporting policy statement and directed that the updated policy statement be turned into a regulation. Today is just over 2 years later, but not that long ago in the regulatory time period, and the Commission considers the diversity reporting final rulemaking order. This rulemaking order requires that each major jurisdictional utility, those with net plant in service of 10 million or more, to annually file, 1, a copy of a corporate policy committed to improving diversity in the workplace and in the procurement process. 2, a description of training implemented on diversity initiatives in employment and in the contract of goods and services. 3, the demographic composition of the major jurisdictional utilities workforce, reporting the number of employees by gender, race, and ethnicity, LGBTQ, persons with disabilities, and veterans. 4, a description of diversity recruiting strategies. 5, a description of diversity promotion efforts. 6, a description of diversity retention efforts. 7, a brief description of involvement with organizations promoting diversity. And 8, a summary of diverse businesses that the utility contracts with for goods and services, including the percentage of dollars spent with diverse and non-diverse businesses. Corporate diversity is not just a social issue, it is a financial issue. Recent studies have documented the relationship between diversity and improved financial performance. I have noted before that Pennsylvania is a diverse state when it comes to energy production, natural resources, manufacturing, agriculture, and last but not least, the citizens of the Commonwealth. Our jurisdictional public utilities, as regulated monopolies, have a unique connection to the communities they serve and should draw on the strengths provided by the diverse citizens of the state, whom I might add are all also utility consumers. Properly structured diversity programs can successfully leverage untapped, talented pools in this time of increased utility workforce retirements. I believe that the transparency that comes with this reporting requirement is beneficial on many levels and will strengthen the overall goal towards reliability in utility service. This rulemaking does acknowledge statutory limitations for additional reporting requirements on certain entities under subsection 3015E through F of the Public Utility Code, which arguably constrains the Commission from requiring additional reports from major telecommunication utilities. Although this rulemaking does not require reporting by such companies, I believe that most, if not all, have a good story to tell, which can be done through voluntary filings through this report. I wish to thank the Law Bureau staff for their diligent work on this rulemaking, as well as the many commentators whose views enrich the document. I also want to thank my staff personally. I know Kim Barrow has put a lot of time and effort into this. I do want to thank her personally for all her hard work. Thank you very much. Any further comments on these regulations? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes 3-0.
Turning to page 19, and matters presented by Chief Administrative Law Judge Rainey and the Office of Administrative Law Judge. It is recommended that the Commission adopt ALJ Vero's initial decision on remand in the formal complaint of Maisha Brown versus the Pico Energy Company Electric Division.
Is there a motion to adopt the staff recommendation?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Vice Chairman Coleman, second by Commissioner Unora. Any discussion?
Chairman, I do have a motion on this matter.
Vice Chairman Coleman.
Thank you. I'd ask that my motion be entered the record as though I read it in its entirety. Before the Commission for consideration and disposition is the initial decision issued in this matter. The complainant filed a formal complaint against Pico Energy Company. The matter was scheduled for hearing on remand. The complainant was sent the standard hearing notice on pre-hearing order, and neither were returned to the Commission as undeliverable. No request for a continuance received by the Commission prior to the hearing. The call for the telephonic hearing commenced at the scheduled time and date, but the complainant was not present. The court reporter and the attorney for Pico were all on the call and ready to proceed at the scheduled time. The ALJ waited an additional 15 minutes for the complainant to appear before starting the hearing. Counsel for Pico then moved that the complaint be dismissed with prejudice for the lack of prosecution. The Public Utility Code provides that a party who fails to attend a scheduled conference and hearing shall be deemed to have waived the opportunity to participate and shall not be permitted to later reopen the matter. The Commission may excuse non-attendance at a hearing where the presiding officer shall determine that the failure to be represented was unavoidable and that the interest of the other parties and the public would not be prejudiced. No determination was made that non-attendance was unavoidable, and there are no facts in the record that would allow the Commission to reach this conclusion. Accordingly, I will move that the initial decision be modified so that the formal complaint is dismissed with prejudice as required by law and consistent with the relevant case precedent. Therefore, I move that the initial decision in this proceeding is adopted as modified this motion, and the Office of Special Assistants prepare an opinion in order consistent with this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chairman Coleman. You have heard the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Unora. Discussion on the motion. I do have comments to place on the record, just in a verbal manner. I think that everyone has heard before my concerns in terms of the practice of dismissing complaints that are pro se with prejudice, especially when they just miss a hearing. It's really inconsistent for me in terms of due process. So there's no need for me, when I always talk about this, there's no need to actually close the door for a pro se complainant unless our records show that they were abusing the Commission's administrative process to avoid paying their utility bills. That being said, I notice that the fact pattern in this case causes me another type of concern, in that there's 3 years that have passed since this complaint was filed, which was in April of 2019, and then there has been a sizable arrearage of $4,660.47 that's likely grown significantly. So moreover, it appears that a significant portion of the arrearages, if not all the total arrearages, was accrued under the complainant's enrolled CAP program, which we know from Section 1405C from our act that prohibits the commission from granting payment arrangements on CAP arrearages. So with that taken into consideration, I will support the motion to dismiss the complaint with prejudice. Any further discussion on this matter? Hearing none. On the motion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes 3-0. On the matter as amended, is there any objection to taking the previous roll call? Seeing no objection, the matter as amended passes 3-0.
Continuing on page 19, it is recommended that the commission adopt the initial decision of ALJ Collins in the formal complaint of Brian and Diane Zampati versus the West Penn Power Company.
Is there a motion to adopt the staff recommendation?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Vice Chairman Coleman, second by Commissioner Yonora. Any discussion? Under discussion, I do have a motion to offer, and I will read it in its entirety, actually. Before the Pennsylvania Public Utility Commission for consideration and disposition is the formal complaint of Brian and Diane Zampati, the complainants versus West Penn Power Company. In their complaint, the complainants allege that West Penn violated Section 1501 of Title 66 of the Public Utility Code by failing to provide reliable, safe, and quality utility service. The record here indicates that the complainants experienced a total of 14 outages from November 16, 2017 to April 22, 2021. Further, the complainants experienced 8 reclosure events with interruptions lasting less than 1 minute between June 10, 2021 and August 29, 2021. The record does indicate that West Penn took steps to remedy the service concerns claimed by the complainant. Such actions include replacing equipment at or near the home, including a transformer. Importantly, the record also indicates the complainants experienced fewer outages after these actions were taken. Given the apparent good faith efforts of West Penn and the corresponding results, the presiding administrative law judge dismissed the complaint. I concur with this dismissal. As the ALJ, via the initial decision, Section 1501, and the relevant case law do not require utility companies to provide perfect service. While the circumstances here do not rise to such a level to support sustaining this complaint, they do warrant further review by the commission staff to help ensure continued reliable, safe, and quality service into the future. For that end, I find it prudent and necessary to refer this proceeding, and specifically the service interruptions disclosed in the record herein, to the Bureau of Technical Utility Services, Reliability Division for monitoring and any other appropriate actions deemed necessary. Therefore, I move that, 1, the initial decision of the Administrative Law Judge, Sharice Z. Collins, in the formal complaint filed by Brian and Diane Zampati versus West Penn Power Company on July 16, 2020, at docket number C-2020-302-1157 be modified consistent with this motion, and 2, the Office of Special Assistance draft a opinion and order consistent with this motion. I was supposed to turn it over to you to see where
It's all right.
sorry about that.
You didn't need me. Unless you need a second.
I just realized. I do apologize.
No.
Sorry, Vice Mayor.
No, that's fine. I'd be happy to second the motion.
I just noticed that. Sorry about, I do apologize. Well, you want to preside over this? You have to preside now, so.
Well, okay, well, the motion has been properly moved. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
The motion has been properly moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 3-0. Thank you. I'll turn the agenda back to the chairman.
Thank you. Once again, I do apologize. I was on a roll. Madam
You
Secretary.
want to take the vote as
Oh,
amended?
as amended, you have to finish that part too. Vote as amended.
I'm sorry.
You want to accept the vote
Yes, we will
as
accept
amended?
the motion as amended unless there's any objection. No objections noted. So we will accept the motion as modified by the chairman's motion. Thank you.
Turning to page 20. It is recommended that the commission adopt in an omnibus motion both items on page 20, beginning with the recommended decision of ALJ Haas in the application of Pennsylvania American Wastewater to acquire the assets of the York City Sewer Authority, and ending the omnibus on page 20 with the initial decision of ALJ Barnes in the joint application filed by Aqua Pennsylvania and Aqua Pennsylvania Wastewater.
Is there a motion to adopt the staff recommendations?
So moved?
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Vice Chairman Coleman, second by Commissioner Unora. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion passes 3-0.
Turning to page 21, it is recommended that the commission adopt ALJ Heap's recommended decision in the complaint filed by the Office of Consumer Advocate versus the Pennsylvania Power Company.
Is there a motion to adopt the staff recommendation?
So moved?
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Vice Chairman Coleman, second by Commissioner Unora. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion passes 3-0.
And continuing on page 21, it is recommended that the commission adopt ALJ Brady's recommended decision in the petition for approval filed by the Borough of Hanover Municipal Waterworks.
Is there a motion to adopt the staff recommendation?
So moved?
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Vice Chairman Coleman, second by Commissioner Unora. Any discussion? I do have comments and ask that they be placed in the record in their entirety. Before the commission is the Borough of Hanover Municipal Waterworks petition for approval of a distribution system improvement charge. I am encouraged by the recent steps taken by Hanover, including this instant proceeding along with the associated filing of its long-term infrastructure improvement plan, or LTIP, which this commission has already approved. Such actions will help to ensure Hanover maintains a reliable and modern water system. I do wish to take the opportunity to respectfully clarify one issue. In this petition, the parties settled on a distribution system improvement charge design which established the means for cost recovery of projects that may be located inside the municipal boundary of Hanover or outside of the commission's jurisdiction, but that ultimately do serve a benefit for the customers outside of Hanover's municipal boundaries or within the commission's jurisdiction. Hanover will apportion any such costs to the PUC jurisdictional customers utilizing the cost of services study design approved in its most recently approved rate case. I recognize that the network design of Hanover's water system, along with its bifurcated commission jurisdiction, necessarily leads to this unique disk design. I do, however, remind Hanover that its approved LTIP did not include any projects or property inside its municipal boundary or border. In the Commission's order approving the LTIP, we stated, we will not address at this time the questions of whether such an apportionment of expenditures is appropriate and whether such facilities are eligible properly as defined in Title 66 of the Pennsylvania Consolidated Statute, Section 1351, and thus eligible for inclusion in an LTIP, end quote. In order to be eligible for DIS recovery, an expense must be associated with the property outlined in a utilities approved LTIP. As such, I wish to respectfully remind Hanover that should it seek to recover via DISC capital expenses for projects within its municipal boundaries, it must first modify its LTIP to include such property. With that said, I am pleased to vote in support of this petition. So all those in favor, or if there's no other comments or discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes 3-0.
Madam Chairman, that concludes the regular agenda. Turning now to the carry-in. On page 1 of the carry-in agenda, it is recommended by the Bureau of Technical Utility Services that the Commission adopt in an omnibus motion both items on page 1 of the carry-in, beginning with the letter of notification filed by the West Penn Power Company and continuing and ending the omnibus on page 2 of the carry-in to include the suspension of the proposed rate filing by Columbia Gas of Pennsylvania.
Is there a motion to adopt the staff recommendations?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Vice Chairman Coleman, second by Commissioner Unora. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes 3-0.
Madam Chairman and Commissioners, that concludes all agenda items to be considered today.
Thank you very much, Madam Secretary. Before we close out today's meeting, I do want to turn to Vice Chairman Coleman for comments.
Thank you, Chairman. It's great to see everybody, see your smiling faces here today after 2 years of a hiatus, and how appropriate we're here in the month of April. As all of you who are regular attendees know what that means. That's a very special and dear time for me as we celebrate Safe Digging Month, right? Everybody remembers that, right? So, now with the weather breaking and we're all getting excited about getting outside and starting our home improvement projects and grabbing a shovel and looking to plant a new tree or mailbox, and we all know that we need to call 811 before we do that, right? So I would just remind all of you that as you're doing your projects, if you could just take that little step of calling 811 before you dig, we can reduce line hits by 50%. In the state of Pennsylvania, there's over 8,000 hits to underground facilities each year. And if we just take that little step by calling 811 and making sure that those lines are marked before anybody does any digging, we can reduce line hits by 50%. I also wanted to just take a quick moment this morning that there's a second piece of the PA one call system that we talked about in the past, and I just want to reiterate that to all of our utility and contractor friends, that the PA one call has a wonderful next generation utility coordination tool called PA, or Coordinate Pennsylvania, Coordinate PA. And if you go on to the PA one call website, you can navigate down through and find out a little bit more about this computer-generated system where contractors and utilities can put their information, their project information into the computer system. It will map it, and if you put your timeline in, it will put that in as well, and it will coordinate with others that may be in the same area as you. And I'm sure you can realize what that means in terms of cost savings and creating efficiency and coordination. So I would just remind you this morning to strongly take advantage of that system through the PA one call system. And again, you can find out more on the PA one call website. Finally, I just want to give a shout out to our Damage Prevention Committee and the wonderful work that they do. They meet in this room on a regular basis, and if you're interested in their good work, you're welcome to come here and see as they adjudicate cases of those who have allegedly violated the law, and you can see how that all works right here in the room. But the Damage Prevention Committee has been given that responsibility by the commissioners to adjudicate those cases, and you can see in real time how that process works. So again, I want to thank Terry Cooper Smith from our commission, who chairs that group, and all of our Damage Prevention Committee members who are from stakeholders from the industry, contractors and others that adjudicate those cases, and they do a great job. It's hard work. They volunteer their time to do this, and again, they just do a fantastic job with it. So again, thank you for the opportunity this morning, and I hope that all of you will remember this comment today, that if you're out there digging, please call 811. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Vice Chairman Coleman. And there are no other matters to come before us today. So without objection, I assume there's no objection to adjournment. Without objection, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.